discuss two dockets. Docket 1452, it's a petition for a special law and act relative to certain affordable housing in Charlestown section of the City of Boston. And also docket 1453, petition for a special law and act relative to certain affordable housing in the Brighton section of the City of Boston. It is Friday, December the 6th, 2019, and this matter was sponsored by Mayor Martin J. Walsh, referred to committee back on October the 23rd. Both matters, as referenced, are home rule petitions that seek to allow BHA to participate in redevelopment using federal funds to revive the Charlestown Bunker Hill Public Housing Development and the J.J. Carroll Public Housing Development. The transmittal letter also indicates the redevelopment of both of these communities requires certain exemptions from state's contract and procurement award laws, which I know that Lydia Agro, Chief of Staff of BHA, she's here. We've done a number of these over the years. And for background reference, the City Council has done similar matters in East Boston, Jamaica Plain, South Boston, and Roxbury. Specific housing developments include Whittier Street, Eva White, Orient Heights, Bromley Heath, Mission, Maine, Orchard Garden, Maverick Gardens, West Broadway Homes, Old Colony, Washington Beach, Franklin Hill, Amory Street, and Lenox Camden Family Development. So I'd like to remind folks that this matter is being recorded and broadcast on Comcast Channel 8, RCN Channel 82, and Verizon 1964, and it's streamlined on Boston City Council TV. And anyone wishing to provide public testimony, I see lots of folks here, you do so by filling out this sheet, which a number of folks have done, which is right as you come in the chamber. And at the appropriate time for public testimony, you can use either microphone on both sides of the chamber. And with that, before I introduce Lydia Agro, if my colleague, City Council Leader Edwards, has an opening comment, she's deferring, in which case, welcome back to City Council chambers, Lydia, and you have the floor to make an introduction, and we can take both dockets at the same time, and then we'll elicit public testimony from those that choose to speak from either Charlestown and or Brighton community. So,
okay,
welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Dear Chairperson Flaherty and members of the committee, good morning. My name is Lydia Agro, and I'm the Chief of Staff and Public Affairs at the Boston Housing Authority. I appreciate the opportunity to come here today and testify regarding the critical importance of this legislation to the BHA and, more importantly, to the residents of the Bunker Hill Public Housing Development in Charlestown and at the J.J. Carroll Elderly Disabled Development in Brighton. The BHA's primary goal and intention for both sites is to preserve, one-for-one, the deeply affordable housing at each site and to improve resident quality of life for the long-term future. For the Bunker Hill site, the BHA has designated a joint venture of Leggett McCall Properties and Joseph J. Corcoran Company to fully redevelop this property as a mixed-income community in order to preserve all of the 1,110 deeply affordable apartments currently there. Bunker Hill is the BHA's largest development, as well as one of the oldest. It was first occupied in 1940 and houses more than 2,300 residents. Due to lack of sufficient federal capital funding to upgrade and preserve this valuable resource for our very low-income families, BHA entered into a partnership with the development team to redevelop this property as a mechanism for long-term preservation. After redevelopment, there will be a mixed-income community of 2,699 apartments at the site. BHA and the development team have been meeting with both the residents and community regarding the plans for the site and have several overarching goals. One is that every deeply affordable BHA apartment will be replaced. We will also maximize on-site relocation. Any residents that have to move temporarily off-site will have the right to return to the site after redevelopment. BHA will continue to own the land, and residents will have a strong voice in the planning and implementation of the project. For the J.J. Carroll Apartments, a 64-unit public housing development on Chestnut Hill Avenue in Brighton that serves seniors and persons with disabilities, BHA has partnered with Two Life Communities, formerly Jewish Community Housing for the Elderly, in order to redevelop that site. Two Life owns and operates a campus of senior housing that directly abuts the property. The new J.J. Carroll will be fully integrated into the Two Life Brighton campus. The redevelopment will create 144 units of affordable housing and will include 64 replacement apartments, deeply affordable to elderly and disabled households, 80 additional affordable senior rental units, non-residential space such as a PACE center, a program of all-inclusive care for the elderly, and a number of resident services, as well as publicly accessible open space. Current J.J. Carroll residents will be offered new apartments at construction completion. New homes that will be linked to Two Life's existing senior housing campus with its extensive programs and resident services. Construction is targeted to begin in October 2020 and will take up to 18 months. In the meantime, residents will relocate into Two Life's current portfolio. These petitions are identical to others that you have passed to help revitalize public housing throughout the city. Without this legislation, the BHA will not be able to redevelop the Bunker Hill or J.J. Carroll properties. As with other projects, such as Mission Main, Maverick, and Old Colony, to name just a few, approval of this home rule petition is project-specific and is solely and specifically for the redevelopment of the Bunker Hill and J.J. Carroll sites. Although there have been reforms to the state statutes regarding filed subbids under Chapter 149, the changes are insufficient to allow the BHA to move forward in redevelopment efforts of this kind. Without passage, the projects must adhere to an extremely structured filed subbid process with separate general contractor and subcontractor selection. The BHA and its developers would have no ability to value engineer and/or redesign the projects should costs increase beyond the funding available for the redevelopment efforts. The value engineering is where significant savings can be made by allowing the developers to negotiate pricing with the various subcontractors. Under existing statutes, changes in design made to reduce cost may require that the bid process begin all over again, putting the entire project at risk. The Bunker Hill property is severely distressed in terms of systems, envelope, common area, and unit kitchen and bath issues. The residents have been actively involved in the planning and redevelopment at the site, and resident leaders are included in all aspects of the planning process. We have a tri-party term sheet agreement which is being expanded into a development agreement between the developer, BHA, and the Charlestown Resident Alliance to memorialize guiding principles and commitments. Mayor Walsh has committed $30 million to launch the Bunker Hill project. With this legislation, the property will now be fully renovated and residents will have a new vibrant community to call home. There will be no change to the level of affordability for current residents. Originally built in the 1960s, the buildings at J.J. Carroll are also obsolete with systems that are expensive to maintain and entirely lacking in accessibility features. The property will now be fully renovated and a full slate of resident services not currently available to residents will be brought on site. This effort also allows us to create 80 new affordable apartments for seniors beyond the replacement units. At both sites, the BHA will continue to own the land on which the buildings will be rebuilt and lease it to the developer. The city will realize hundreds of millions of dollars in increased tax revenues in decades to come from the market units. That's at the Charlestown site. And lastly, where there are market rate units, the developer profit is capped, such that if proceeds exceed expectations, the funding will be used for additional affordable housing. Our residents deserve to live in suitable and decent housing, and at both sites are excited to see this vision become a reality. We ask for your support of this legislation so that we are able to make this redevelopment a reality for them at both sites. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lydia. Obviously, before we move forward on these two dockets, I'd like to kind of get maybe a quick snapshot of the most recent one that we allowed. So when the council's giving approval to allow an exemption from state contract and/or from procurement award laws, we want to make sure that the ones that we've done in advance. So I think the last one, if you can refresh my memory, was the Ava White. Mm-hmm. So can you just maybe give me a quick update as to where things stand with respect to that one and how sort of that the exemption has allowed you to
Okay, I'm going to defer to our Director of Real Estate Development, Joe Bamberg. Do you have an update on Ava White, maybe?
Joe, if you can come down, you're more than welcome to come down. And while we're waiting for him, I would need a breakdown, too, of the number of residents that will be displaced at both Bunker Hill and J.J. Carroll. Do we have an exact number of individuals who will be displaced?
So at the Charlestown location, we have a commitment to really try to minimize off-site relocation for residents. In the initial phase, I believe it will be 53 households, although some of those households, if we have units on site, will be able to remain on site. So until we sit down with that first group of 53 and talk to them about what they want to do, if they want to remain on site, if they want to take a Section 8 voucher temporarily. I don't have an exact number to that, but each family has a pretty thorough discussion and meeting with our relocation team. They talk about what's best for that family, and we keep as many families on site as we can. And then those that choose to or need to relocate, at least temporarily, also have the opportunity to come back to the site. So over the long term, nobody's going to be displaced. They'll all have the opportunity to come back to the site if they so choose. Families do sometimes choose not to return. And at J.J. Carroll, residents are going to be relocated within the Two Life community, that's my understanding. So that's a building right next door to J.J. Carroll. So they will all remain in the community, and when the new units are ready, they can move back over to the J.J. Carroll units.
And then anecdotally, based on the number of developments that have been revitalized, what is the percentage of folks that get the Section 8 voucher and then they stay off-site, they stay with the Section 8 voucher?
Do you know that number? I mean, I think typically, how many people return? Typically about 50%?
Typically, it's about 50% that return, whether or not folks have moved with a voucher, if they've moved to other public housing.
Gotcha. Okay. Very good. So welcome. If you can just introduce your name and affiliation for the record for those that are watching, and just give us a snapshot of the Ava White.
Yeah, sure. My name is Joe Bamberg. I'm the Director of Planning and Development for the Boston Housing Authority. Ava White is underway. We are in the process of trying to secure financing and more specifically public resources to carry out renovations to the building. Just prior to Thanksgiving, there was a deadline to submit an application to the state, to the Department of Housing and Community Development. It's a pre-application for funding. So our partners in BHA were looking for some some support from the state, and we expect to hear back in the new year with an invitation, hopefully, to put in a full application. We're sort of in line, waiting patiently for resources that I'm certain that we will get, but there are a lot of worthy developments ahead of us as well. So.
Gotcha. And do you anticipate the issues that you're dealing with now with Ava White to also be reflective in the Bunker Hill and or the J.J. Carroll, where we may need an additional partner or some type of financial support down the road from whatever resource, city, state, feds?
Yeah, I think in both the case of Charlestown and J.J. Carroll, we're looking at different types of financing models. Eva White is a much more traditional, affordable housing. You sort of go to the longstanding supporters at the state level and the city level, and it's a somewhat slower process. Both Charlestown is relying to a great extent on private equity, and J.J. Carroll is, I think, benefiting from some expedited resources that will come from the fact that there are other senior housing developments in the community that are at risk of losing their affordability. So there's just there are different paths available to the projects.
And in the private equity situations, as in Bunker Hill, those more often result in an increase in the number of units, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Versus the other situation. So what's the exact increase in number of units for Bunker Hill?
So the number of units there now are 1,110. The number of units proposed to come back are 2,699.
So that is it's a 1,589 additional units that, obviously, like anything else, working with the community, working with the civic associations and the local elected leaders to see if that's sort of the most palatable number in terms of density and whatever. So, very good. Chair recognizes my colleague, City Council Lydia Edwards.
Thank you. Just wanted to make sure that we walk through the timeline. So after we file this this home rule petition and go to the State House, in that time, while it's pending there, what's the next steps for this project? When will the Article 80 process start? When do you anticipate the plans to be formally worked on in the IAG?
So my understanding is that the Article 80 filing will happen sometime in mid-January. I I can turn to the developer for more specifics if you want in terms of what the exact timeline is, but mid-January, the filing's going to occur. There's going to be a series of meetings, community meetings and that kind of thing, and I expect that will go on through the spring. And the hope is to start construction in the fall of next year after that Article 80 process is complete.
And just to reiterate, and I wanted to also emphasize the amount of work from the Charlestown Resident Alliance, the developer, and Greater Boston Legal Services in making sure displacement was kept at a minimum. And I want to congratulate you on that work. So far, at the most, and again, we're still working on reducing that, at most, we're talking about 53 units, but we're again looking for on-site placements with the hope that some of that 53 is reduced, assuming all 53 want to stay. Again, some may want to take the Section 8 vouchers and leave. But again, I wanted to acknowledge that the amount of work it took to get to assure that that on-site displacement was heavily reduced. So I wanted to thank those folks, some of whom are in the audience today. Just another quick question. I see 2,699 units that's on-site. My understanding is there's another set of units to be placed off-site.
Yeah, there's a plan to potentially place 100 of the affordable units off-site.
So the total replacement is 2,700 or 2,800 units about.
Yeah, if you include 100 off-site, yes, that's correct.
So the 2699 does not include.
The total
that.
number would be 2799, yeah.
So when, but again, I understand that part of the process and conversation is to keep as many of those on-site?
Yes,
And
yes.
that's the goal?
That's the goal.
And to have that conversation, and I know that the conversation and many of them will start in mid to late January.
Correct. I mean, as you know, one of the concerns in the community is that the site not be too dense. And
Correct.
so,
Or too high.
Right, or too
Correct.
high. So there's some
Right.
discussion around what's the best mix in terms of the on-site, total number of units on-site. And in order to try to keep that number at a lower level, we are looking at potentially placing 100 affordable units off-site, but are certainly still looking to see if there is a way to keep them on-site.
Right, so just to be clear, and this is for folks who are going to watch this one day and say, you said blah, 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 this home rule petition is really allowing us to go through the process, the actual filing of the plans and draft plans, which is what's going to be filed in January, will kick off the process for extensive amount of community feedback between the IAG and also additional meetings that will impact the plans, that will look at all the different impacts on our schools, on our roads, on the design. All of those different things will happen with the goal of construction starting in the fall.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And someone, as you know, who's very fond of public housing, having been born in the old harbor, which is now the Mira Lane McCormick, and having been chair and working through this process, a number of home rule petitions that have really brought tremendous revitalization and a sort of a renewed spirit in uptick in the morale of a lot of the developments. It's been sort of these public-private partnerships, as well as our ability to get some exemptions from state and state procurement award laws that allow us to do these things. So I tend to I used to call them the sort of the Bill McGonigal model, if you will, in recognition of sort of the late great and most recent passing of Bill McGonigal. But I know he was very fond of these programs, clearly fond of public housing in general as the leader of BHA for so long, but he was pretty proud of being able to be creative around these public-private partnerships. So our hope is that give you the ability to do this portion of it, let sort of the equity and the private partners do their part of it in working most importantly with the residents of the public housing development, but also the broader community as well. So happy to do that.
Thank you, Councilor. Thank you.
And I know that there's a number of folks here, and some have signed up to testify. Tina Goodnow, if she's here and she wishes to offer testimony, you can come wherever you're most comfortable, either microphone. I also see that if there's anyone else that, I know there's a number of folks that have signed in to say that they're here. Only one had indicated the willingness to testify. So anyone who wishes to testify, just queue up right behind Tina. or forever hold your peace, as they say. So Tina, welcome, good to see you, and
Thank you. Good to see you as
introduce yourself for the
well.
record, and you have the floor.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Tina Goodnow. I'm from the Charlestown Resident Alliance. I just want to say thank you, Chairman Flaherty and councilors, and a special thanks for our district councilwoman, Lydia Edwards. She has hosted and attended many of our meetings about the Charlestown project, which has been very long in coming. So we appreciate this committee on government operations scheduling this important hearing today. And we appreciate the opportunity to testify in support of the home rule petition before you. Again, my name is Tina Goodnow. I am the Vice President of the Charlestown Resident Alliance, CRA for short. The CRA is the tenant organization that represents the 1,100 very low and low-income families who live at the Bunker Hill development. I am here today with CRA's other officers, Nancy Martinez, which is our president, Carla Wirt, which is our secretary, and Phil Wright, who was our treasurer, and our legal advisors from Greater Boston Legal Services. We have Lawrence Song and Mac McCrate. The Bunker Hill development is in very bad shape. It was built in 1941, older than most of us. It is one of the oldest public housing in the whole country and the largest in Massachusetts. Since the buildings were built, HUD just hasn't provided enough money to maintain them, and now there is even less federal money to make badly needed repairs. The CRA has worked very closely with the BHA from the beginning because we cannot continue to live in these terribly poor conditions. So we supported BHA's proposal to HUD to demolish our obsolete public housing units. But we also agreed and signed with BHA and our development partners, Leggett McCall Properties and Joseph Cochran Companies, a binding guarantee of the following terms. 1, 1,010 of our public housing units will be replaced on site in a newly constructed mixed income community, and the remaining 100 units will be replaced nearby, also in Charlestown or back at our site. 2, all public housing replacement units will continue to be operated as deeply affordable housing, even under private ownership and management. 3, all current public housing families, including ones who temporarily relocate off-site due to the redevelopment project, will have the right to return and will be offered a public housing replacement unit in the new mixed income community. 4, all the units, whether affordable or market rent, will share the same high quality materials, design, and amenities. And we are excited. We will have a community center for the first time where the programming will be useful for all families at the new development, as well as 2 parks, in addition to publicly accessible space. We, the CRA, we meet very regularly with our development partners and our own independent team of legal and other technical advisors. CRA is also a signing partner in the development agreement with BHA and our developers. As you know, it is almost impossible now for low-income families to afford to rent in the Boston market. Many of us were formerly homeless, including myself, and we know just how painful it is to live with the housing insecurity. It is also very disturbing to us that Boston is at risk of reverting to becoming a highly segregated city with the haves and the have-nots. We still need hundreds of millions in private investments in the future market rents to replace our obsolete affordable units in a new, vibrant, mixed-income community. So we are very grateful to the mayor's commitment of the $30 million of Boston's capital funds to move this project forward. And we are committed to working closely with our public-private partnership with BHA and our developers until we make this redevelopment a reality. The project's layered financing needs and complex zoning approvals are certainly daunting, and we still have a lot of work before us. But we cannot afford to fail. Redeveloping Bunker Hill through a public-private partnership is the only feasible solution to preserve the affordability of the 1,100 units. Our families are counting on us, and each member of this council and the mayor to support us. We have already waited several years to reach today, dreaming of homes where our children too, can live in healthy environments, and our elderly and disabled can have safe, accessible units where they are able to live independently longer. Thank you for your time and support of our residents. Please vote in favor of our home rule petition so we can move the project forward without further delays. Thank you. I'm sorry I got a little emotional.
Good stuff. That's
It
your
really
home.
hits home.
That's your home and that's your neighborhood, so, and we appreciate
Thank
your
you.
advocacy and your passion. So thank you, Tina, thank you to the Charlestown Residents Alliance, and you know,
Thank
we
you.
work for you. We wouldn't be at this point if it wasn't for you and for the CRA's advocacy. It doesn't happen unless the residents of Bunker Hill want that to happen. You clearly, you're passionate about what needs to happen there. I know there's been, we can talk about till we're blue in the face, but the federal government has walked away from public housing.
Right.
In my neighborhood and every neighborhood across the city, and you guys, you have a front row seat to it every day. So this is an opportunity to let us know what you want, what you just outlined very articulately on behalf of your organization and your neighborhood. And we're going to commit to getting this turned around and get this before the council for a vote on Wednesday. So we can give the BHA the ability, working with other partners, to make this a reality for folks. So, and you also have to endure the construction piece of it. So
Yes,
be prepared for that.
absolutely.
But we'll
Yes.
be working closely together, obviously with your district councilor, to make sure that, let's just try to make that as seamless as possible. But, so I appreciate your attention to detail today, and you have our commitment to get this turned around for a vote before the council on Wednesday.
Thank you so
God
much.
bless you
We
guys.
really
Good to see you all.
appreciate that.
Merry
Thank
Christmas,
you.
and enjoy your holidays.
Thank you. Merry Christmas to you. Happy holidays.
And anyone else wishing to offer public testimony may do so now for the public testimony piece. And seeing and hearing no additional desire to do so, that will close the public hearing piece. And unless my colleague has any final comments or thoughts, thank you, Lydia, for taking time to come in. And this is good
Thank
stuff.
you.
We enjoy helping people, particularly our residents. Some of them are most vulnerable residents that are living in public housing, and recognizing that, and in an effort to prevent our city becoming the city of the very rich and the very poor, these things are very necessary to make sure that everyone feels that they're part of the process, but most importantly that their living conditions, their living standards are what they should be for every resident of our city. So I'm excited to be able to sort of put together a favorable committee report with my colleague, Councilor Edwards, and get it before the council. So any final comments at this point in time?
Again, just thank you all for coming out here today. You know that this is really the beginning of the work, and I know you guys have proven to organize, to meet people where they are. Thank you so much for the invitations. I love coming, I love listening, and you know you have an advocate in me. And so this is the day that we start and we move and we continue to move until it's done. And I think it's a 12-year relationship we're in right now with Leggett McCall and Cochran Jennison. So I'm excited to continue that, deepen that relationship. Thank you also for coming out here today and your work and going to the meetings, meeting with me, meeting with the representative. I know that to the developer especially, Charlestown's a tough nut to crack. I know that personally. And I know that you get chewed up a lot at the meetings, but it's, you know, it's a sign of care and respect, if you will. And we're going to get chewed up even more. So, you know, put your seatbelts on. We got a lot of work to do because it's worth the fight and it's worth the effort. So thank you so much for coming today as well.
It's a good point. Obviously, the Corcoran Company, as well as Leggett McCall, they get great reputation. They've done great work in the city. They're very passionate about the product that they put forward, and it's that attention to detail that I'm convinced that working closely with the residents of Charlestown and also the Brighton project, that it'll get done and it'll be of excellent, top-notch quality. And so we're excited for the final product, but in the meantime, as Councilor Edwards indicated, that there's some back and forth that has to take place as part of the community process, but I think it's that partnership that both of those companies, their leaders are here today. I see Joe Corcoran is present. That's the type of commitment they have. It's the name and the face with the company that is here front and center, and that gives, I know me and I know my colleagues, a lot of confidence that this will be done and will be done well and is done as quickly as possible. So with that, docket 1452, which is a special law act relative to certain affordable housing in Charlestown, and also docket 1453, an act relative to certain affordable housing in the Brighton section of the neighborhood, specifically the Bunker Hill housing development and the J.J. Carroll development. The Committee on Government Operations is adjourned. Thank you.